Hello, and welcome to Data-Driven Community Planning. Thank you for being a part of our webinar today. Before we get started, I just want to make sure, can you hear us? Maybe if someone could just type into that chat box, let us know. Can you hear us? Yes, great. We're getting lots of yeses. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Renee Hedrick, and I'm a program analyst with Illinois Action for Children. We also have with us here today Don Thomas from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and IECAM. And we have Agnes Marcos, our project development manager here at Illinois Action for Children. Thank you so much for being with us today. Today, participants will learn how to acquire data on early childhood services in their community and receive guidance on interpreting that data. Participants will also receive helpful tips and strategies on how to ask critical questions of existing data and ideas for gathering more data to support their local efforts. Before we dig in, let's see who's on the webinar with us. So you'll see a poll come up, and we want to find out, who are you? Are you an early childhood provider, collaboration leader, cross-sector partner, state leader, or other? So go ahead and choose your option. We'll take one more second. All right, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and close that poll, and let's find out who's on the call with us today. Okay, looks like we have about 50% early childhood providers, 14% collaboration leaders, 9% cross-sector partners, 3 state leaders, and 24 other. We're definitely curious about who the others are, so feel free to type into the chat box. Let us know what other individuals are on the call with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Great, thank you so much. We have 2 more polls we're going to take a look at. And where are you from? Are you from the southern region, central region, northern region, Cook County? Go ahead and take a few seconds there to type in. And the numbers are coming in. Gathering some data on our data-driven community planning webinar. All right, take just one more second there, and we're going to go ahead and close the poll. Great, let's take a look. We have 12% from the southern region, 35% from central, 27% from northern, and 26% from Cook County. Great, very nice diverse group. And we have one more question for you. What is your comfort level with data? Are you very comfortable, comfortable, somewhat comfortable, not comfortable at all? Find out where you're at with data. Great, go ahead and take one more second there. And let's go ahead and close that poll. All right, 22% very comfortable, 47% comfortable, 26% somewhat comfortable, and 5% not comfortable at all. Great, well hopefully after today those numbers are going to rise even higher. Before we launch into our content, here are some basic housekeeping tips. This session is being recorded and will be available on our Partner Plan Act website for future viewing. All of our Participants have been muted until the Q&A section. At any point, feel free to type your question into the question to the chat box there. And then in the Q&A, we'll allow you to raise your hand and we can unmute you and you can ask those questions out loud. But feel free to type in those questions at any time throughout the webinar. If you encounter any technical issues, please use the chat box to send us a message or go ahead and email Carla with the email address there on the screen. Great. And we're also curious, if you're attending with other people, we'd love to know. So if you're in a room listening to the webinar with your colleagues, let us know how many people are on the call with you. So go ahead and type into that chat box and let us know how many people are listening in with you. That's helpful data for us. Okay. We're going to take a quick look at our agenda. We did our welcome and introductions. We're going to launch into a brief overview of using data. Dawn's going to talk to us about accessing and using IECAM data. And then we're going to go through the steps of using data, and we'll have some time to go through a few examples. And then at the end, we'll have some time for question and answer. I'm going to turn it over to Agnes, who's going to talk to us about using data.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is data. So on the screen, you're seeing a snapshot of a using data toolkit. So this was created as a project of the Innovation Zone. It's a guide to using data from planning, implementation, evaluations, and even iterating your process. You can access this toolkit and many others like it at partnerplanact.org under Partner and under Toolkits. So there are two types of data, qualitative and quantitative. We're mostly familiar with quantitative data. These are numbers, measurements, counts, or values, like how many children are enrolled at Kids Are Great Center, and the answer could be like 585. Qualitative data is descriptive information, like an anecdote or story. This data categorizes and measures types of things or people. We could ask, what hair color is the most prevalent in Illinois? And someone could come up with the answer, red. Both types of data enhance our work, and they're both important. Used together, they help us understand what's going on now, what we want to change, and the results of our work. So there are some benefits of using data. Benefits of using data give us an unbiased view. This dismisses previous assumptions or beliefs, creating an unassuming view of the landscape you're working in. Data also helps to inform strategies and decisions. Looking at the data, we can decide what strategies might need priority and how to plan and implement the strategies. For instance, measuring the progress, we can see if our efforts are making an impact by comparing data over time and ultimately moving closer to our goals. The spectrum of decision-making goes from using just data on one end or using just the human experience on the other end. Using data to inform decision-making blends both data and the human experience to solve problems and make better decisions about services, programs, strategies, and systems in order to improve outcomes for children and families. We carry some beliefs and behavior to ensure our work stays data-informed. Some beliefs include data is not just numbers. Remember, both qualitative and quantitative data are equally important. Data helps us learn which strategies are working and which strategies need to be adjusted or improved a bit. Data helps us make more informed decisions. Data also helps us improve. Some behaviors around it include collaboration, asking questions, learn from data, and staying curious. We have created a data toolkit which includes links to accessing data, program-level forms for collection, and auto-populated graphs that populate once you enter the data to use with, your funders or community collaborations to discuss your impact. What you're seeing on the screen are a couple screenshots of what this toolkit looks like and the different sheets in the Excel of this toolkit. These will be finalized next week and posted to Partner PlanAct soon. I'd like to pause for any questions. Feel free to type them into the chat box or raise your hand so Carla can unmute you. So I'll pause here for a minute. It doesn't look like we have any questions at the time, so I'd like to turn it over to Dawn, who will walk us through IECAM, a very useful data tool.
Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and allocation and make it more transparent by showing the changes in the funding of services from year to year, particularly across geographic regions. And IECAM also provides a one-stop source for early learning and demographic data. We are funded by the Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois Department of Human Services. And on the bottom right-hand side of the slide is our website, iecam.illinois.edu. So what do we have on IECAM? We have different types of early childhood data. We have Head Start, early Head Start data, preschool for all, child care data, prevention initiative data, home visiting data, and we are in the process of putting up McV home visiting data. We also have demographic data. We have population, race and ethnicity, poverty, language, working families, and many other risk factors in our demographic database. What we do is we put these data in regions. We have the state all the way down to ZCTA, which is just a fancy word for zip code. And then we also put it in two different formats, tables and maps. And really it just depends on what you want to use the data for. So, we also like to use data in service to the state of Illinois. We provide data for programs responding to things like RFPs. I know ISB is having an RFP currently, and there will also be one in the next couple of months. And so we will be providing data for all of that. We also provide data to the Illinois Early Learning Council committee structure, the Children's Cabinet, other state agencies, and also advocates. And then, of course, we also provide customized data and maps based on user requests. So at any point in time, you can call or you can email and talk to us about what you want, and we will try to get the data or the customized map to you. So, this next slide, using data to answer questions and help address problems and challenges. First of all, and we're going to kind of go through some of these throughout the rest of the webinar, but first of all, you want to identify the problem or issue. What is the challenge you are trying to address? And then you want to identify possible solutions to the challenge. What will it take to alleviate or minimize the problem? Can we actually do anything to help solve the problem? Do we have the resources to do that? Do we have the financial resources? Do we have the data? Do we have the personnel? Actually, you name it, and it can be a solution to the challenge. You also want to identify the resources you have and the resources you need. What kind of data will we need to further identify the issues and to bring about some sort of solution? Are the data available? And if the data are available, do we know how to use the data accurately and appropriately? And again, this will be things that we'll address later on as we go through the webinar.
And John, maybe I'll pause just for a second. We have a question coming in that might be helpful to address now. When will IECAM info be updated, and what year will the data be gathered from?
Okay. For the demographic data, we are in the process of using the U.S. Census Demographic 2015 release. As a rule of thumb, the Census Bureau is always 2 years behind, since we're in the year 2017. The next release, which we are working on now, is 2015. As far as programmatic data, I believe we have 2015 and 2016 up, based on whatever program you're looking at, whether it's child care, CCAP, PFA, Head Start. And I guess I should go ahead and say, as far as the programmatic year of the data that we have, it really is dependent on the data source. Sometimes we can get the data from the data source quite quickly and we can get it up. Other times it takes a little more time. Good question though. Do we have another one? What do we do when IECAM data is not correct? You know what? First thing you should do is give me a call or an email. We have those things happen all the time. We depend on many people to get the data in, from the people who enter the data in the program to ISB or INCRA, whoever our data source is, and then also our own programmers. And so when you've got that many steps, it's easy to get it wrong. So please call us and just say, you know what, the data's wrong. And then we will work with you to make sure that it is corrected. Any other questions that you can think? No? Great. Okay, so answering a user question with tabular data. What we did here was we just wanted to give you an example of what you might find. So I just chose a question. What is the ability of publicly funded early learning programs, in this case it would be PFA and Head Start, in Champaign County to serve at-risk children ages 3, 4, and 5? So really it involves 3 different questions. How many publicly funded early learning programs are actually located in Champaign County? What is the number of enrollment slots that are offered in Champaign County? And then how many children ages 3, 4, and 5 are living in families with incomes below 185 federal poverty level in Champaign County? And what we've done is, if you were to run a search, which we will actually do in a few minutes, you would end up with a table that looks something like that at the top of the slide. And what you find is that there are 20 centers in Champaign County, there are 11 PFA sites, and there are 9 Head Start sites. And they have the ability to serve 1,355 children. However, what we also find, if you go down to the right-hand side of the slide, there are 2,716 children in Champaign County of preschool age that live in families with incomes below 185 FPL. So what we learned from that is publicly funded early learning programs can serve approximately 46% of those children who are income eligible in Champaign County. Now that's kind of an easy way to look at it. What IECAM does in many instances, well actually I should say in most instances at this point, is we use poverty, different poverty levels based on the federal poverty level as proxies. So we are not saying that there aren't children who need preschool for any of the other risk factors that they may be experiencing, but we use poverty is much easier to measure than many of the other ones, and so we are using that as a proxy. We can also answer questions with maps. So here we have three different, and I know this is kind of a crowded slide. If you look to the bottom left, that is basically a map of Peoria, the Peoria system environment. What the question that we can answer is, where are PFA, Head Start, and child care sites located in the Peoria area? To the right of that, and the red arrow is pointing to that, we have basically a legend, which is telling us what are the data related to this particular PFA site that I'm interested in. So we can go on our interactive maps, our GIS maps, and we can actually identify one center, and then we can pull up data for that. In this case, it's Maya's Just for Kids. We are given the address, we are given the zip code, the county, the proposed capacity of 20, and then if the slide were to keep going down, we'd be told what legislative district Maya's Just for Kids Center is in, what federal congressional district, what school district, etc. And then lastly, as another example, the upper right corner, we can answer the question, are the publicly funded early learning sites, PFA and Head Start, in Peoria located in areas of poverty? And in that case, you just kind of have to look a little more closely at the map. What we've seen is that the darker brown indicates a higher percentage of children living below 185% FPL. And then all the way down to the green, which is the lowest percentage. So as you can see there, if you're just taking a very quick look, you can see that many of the PFA sites, in fact, just about, I think, yeah, many of them, except for maybe two, of the PFA sites and the Head Start sites are indeed located in the general area where the highest percentage of children below 185 FPL are living. Now, that is not to say that if we had looked at this picture and there had been no programs, it wouldn't mean that the program was failing, it wouldn't mean that they had located in the wrong section. It would just mean that we needed more local conversations, kind of on the ground. What's going on? Where are these programs located? Is there home visiting? Is there transportation? All of those issues that may impact where a program is located in a particular community. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out and just very quickly review a new page that we have specifically designed to provide resources for the ECBG FY18 planning. If you are planning on writing a grant for ISB funded programs, this is a specialized page that is designed to give you the most up-to-date data that you need for your statement of need. And so I would encourage you to explore that page. You can find it under Resources for ECBG FY18 Planning. Are there any more questions? There you go. Do we have a question on the line? Here we go. Will these slides be sent to the attendees? Actually, they are attached to the webinar right now. So if you go to handouts, you'll be able to download the PDF. And they will be shared afterwards, along with the webinar recording, and posted to Partner Plan X.
All right, I don't see any other questions coming in right now, but feel free to type those into the chat box. Thank you, Don, so much for that overview of IECAM. As you know, there are many access data for. You're going to make meaning of that data, oftentimes in a group with your collaboration or with your core team. And then you're going to prepare for strategy design. So now we have the data, so what does this mean, and how do we use this to inform our decision making, our funding proposals, what have you. All right, step one. So step one is identifying the problem or issue. So this is where you ask the question, what is the problem or challenge that we're trying to address as a community? So a community might be interested in serving more high-needs children. So you might have a hypothesis that there's high-needs children out there, and you might be interested in learning how many high-needs children are there and where are they. So you develop a data question to ask and better understand that question. So you'll see some example questions here. So if I was living in a community and in a community collaboration, I was interested in focusing on more high-needs children in my community, I might ask a data question around how many children ages 3, 4, 5 are living in families in low income below a certain federal poverty level. And then you might also be interested in where are those families, where in the community are they located, and then also where are our sites located, where are early childhood centers located. And that can give you a lot of great information to start tackling that specific problem or issue. Step 2, you're going to identify data needed. What kind of data will we need to further identify the issue and bring about a solution? So in our previous example, you might want to know who are the high-needs children, where are they, where are the sites located. We'd want to understand, is that data available, and how do we access that data? And as you saw, on IECAM, there's a lot of different types of data available, and we can take a look in just a second on how you would find that. And if the data are available, do we know how to use that data accurately and appropriately? And you might be asking your collaboration, what's our capacity to pull data, to look at data, to talk about data together? And that might be a great opportunity to get in touch with IECAM and tap into their resources and their skilled professionals there. Step 3, you're going to go about accessing that data. So we're using IECAM today to locate and pull that data. And then, as Agnes mentioned, we have a data toolkit where you can actually, all the data that you find there, you can populate into that toolkit and help to make charts and graphs. You can also pull maps directly from IECAM, and those are all different things that you can pull, you can gather, and bring to your collaboration meetings, your core team meetings to look at that data together. So I'm going to turn it over to Dawn, and she's going to walk us through how to access data using IECAM.
Great. So one thing that we're going to look at today is just one question. How might you go about answering this question? And the question is, how many children live in extreme poverty in my geographic region? And extreme poverty is defined as living in households below 50% of the federal poverty level.
We're going to go ahead and pull up our webpage, IECAM. There we go.
Okay. First of all, let me just say that I went through and I've already chosen 3 municipalities or towns that are geographically close together. I'm looking at DeKalb, Cortland, and Sycamore. And to be perfectly honest, I chose these simply because they were geographically close together. So I'm going to take you through a live search, and then I'll show you the finished product in some screenshots. So it will sort of be like a cooking show where I'm pretending to make the dish, but the finished dish is already in the oven. So that's what we're going to do. I also want to warn you, I'll be going through this fairly quickly. Please don't get overwhelmed or sitting there saying, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing or what she's doing. Please know, and at the end, my phone number and my email are on the slides. You can call me at any time, okay? And we will take you through it, or we'll just simply get the data for you, okay? That's what we're there for. So I want to tell you that there are multiple ways to get the data that you need to answer this particular question. And I'm going to show you two different ways. One gives you a map and the other numbers. Both are informative and both can help. So first thing I'm going to do is go on the home page. I'm going to click on the menu item at the top right section of the page called Data Search Options. So I click that, and I was sent to a page with 5 items to select from. And these are all of the items that we have. The first thing I'm going to do is select Demographic Theme Maps. This gives an overlay of the locations of early care and education programs with different demographic variables such as poverty, race, ethnicity, and several other variables. I want to see a picture of the 3 communities and see what we're looking at when we consider the question, how many children live in extreme poverty? So I click, and I am sent to a page where I can look at the definition or description of what a demographic theme map is, or I can simply click the large blue button that says Demographic Theme Map Search. This is always a little bit slower because we're pulling up maps. The page that comes up is one that offers both types of interactive maps. You could choose a geographic maps and search, or in this case, we're going to go ahead and go to the demographic theme maps. So I click on that. I have to choose if I want a map that shows me variables by county or census block group. I'm choosing the block group because it's smaller, and I'm going to, and at some point, this is when I say, please work. Okay. Not sure why this isn't letting me do this. Okay, sorry about that. You can tell it's live when I'm basically wanting to growl and say, why aren't you working? Okay, so I've chosen a block group because it's smaller and it's more contained. So when I click on it, I've chosen 50% FPL because that's the variable that the question is asking about. So this map appears on the center of the screen with a map legend on the right-hand side. So we've got the map here, the legend over here. But however, I want to make the map bigger so that I can actually get to the 3 communities. Now again, I've cheated because I know basically where the communities are, or at least I'm hoping that I can get to them. So I'm going to zoom in on the map, and here I can choose to zoom out or to zoom in. I'm going to zoom in, and as you can see, it's getting bigger, and it's also getting more detailed. Now I'm hoping that I find it. Okay, so in a live search, what you're doing is we're zooming in close enough to be able to actually see the census block groups, and we're also starting to see more details in the map. So you have Sycamore right here, you have DeKalb right here, and then you have Portland right here. And we're also seeing more details, like the actual brown and the greens and the light greens, and then you also see programs. And so let's go over and see what we're actually seeing on this map. So if we just look here, you're looking at the basic legend. So for the percentage of children age 5 and under who are living below 50% FPL, okay, what we're seeing is the darkest brown is 75 to 100%, and we're not seeing any in this particular area. But we are seeing the lighter brown. So what it's telling us is this particular area to the west of DeKalb, the town of DeKalb, is 50 to 75% children 5 and under living in extreme poverty. And then when we go to the greens, the light green, and then the darker green, we're seeing a much lower percentage. So what does it mean? What does it mean?
I feel like this is the point where at the cooking show I should be like, Don, tell us what it means.
Tell us, yeah, I think you should, and then I'll be getting out of the oven in just a minute. And then also the top area, if I were going to go to that of the map legend, that also gives us all sorts of symbols, so you can see where the PFA programs are, the Head Start sites, and then the different child care sites. Okay. Let's hold that, and we'll discuss it in just a minute when we look at our fully baked dinner that's already in the oven. So let's go back to the home page. This is a much easier search. We start again on the home page, and we go to the data search option. Keep it on 2016, which is the default year. Again, note that some programs will have other years, and that again depends on the data source. Then we're going to select a region. We're going to select municipalities, and then we come down here and we are going to select 3, Portland. I'm going to need, we'll find Portland, and here it really is just a matter of scrolling. Portland. Hold Control key down, and I'm going to go to DeKalb. And there it is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just do those 2 for now because I'm just showing you. Okay, so we've selected the actual towns. We're going to now do the early childhood service type. I'm just going to go ahead and click on PFA and Head Start, and then we go over and choose demographics. And I'm going to go ahead and do population and 50% FPL. Come down here, click submit. Voila! We almost have the finished dish. What you can do now is you could, if you wanted to, download it as an Excel file. I'm not going to because we're now actually going to go back to our screenshot.
Smells good.
Thanks, yeah. Okay, so what do we have? Basically, This is the map that you guys were looking at a few minutes ago. This is the town of DeKalb, with Sycamore to the northeast and Cortland to the southeast. Note that a large portion of West DeKalb has quite a large percentage of children living in extreme poverty. So, some of the questions that you might want to ask: what is the date of the data? Might the data have changed in intervening years? That's a very good question. And if you're not sure about that, or you think the data is too old, then you call us and you say, do you have more up-to-date data? Where are the ECE programs located? Do you remember a few minutes ago, we looked at the city of Peoria, and we looked at where their programs were located. Well, here, you're looking and seeing this is where it's so important to have local conversations. So what are some of the conversations you might want to have if you were serving families in DeKalb? And then I did want to make this note. It's easy for us to make judgment calls when we don't know the local history, the partners, or previous conversations. So it's really important that we know the whole story. Okay, and then the last slide. And here's our Excel spreadsheet. So if we were just looking at this and we were answering the questions, how many PFA sites are in Cortland? Well, you'll see that if you go to the Cortland row, there are 0 PFA sites, at least in 2015. Now, you may be sitting there saying, wait a minute, I live and work in Cortland and we now have a PFA. Perhaps you do, but we're looking at 2015 data. So it's always important that we look at the year of the data. How many Head Start sites are in Cortland? 0. How many preschool children can be served? Well, right now, if we're just looking at the numbers, 0. How many children at preschool age live in Cortland? 258. How many preschool children who live in Cortland live with incomes below 50%? 27. Part of the conversation might be, where might the children be served? So if we were going to answer this one, how many PFA sites are in DeKalb? And I'll give you a second to look at it.
And then feel free to use that chat box again, or the question box, and let us know.
How many PFA sites are in DeKalb?
Yes, we got some answers coming in. Anybody else?
And again, you might be sitting here thinking, this is so simplistic. You know, it might be, but when you've got a whole Excel spreadsheet with many more numbers than this, it really is nice to just kind of to make sure that we know the numbers that we're looking at. So how many Head Start sites are in DeKalb?
Great. And so do we want to give an answer to that first question? I can type into this.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yes.
Hopefully everybody can see there. Okay. So we have some answers coming in for PFA sites in DeKalb, and the answer is 1. That's correct.
How many Head Start sites?
Go ahead and use that question box to type in.
Okay, they're coming in. And
the answer is?
Drum roll.
0. Very good.
How many preschool children can be served? And again, this is just looking at PFA and Head Start. We haven't considered child care, and I know that they can serve them, but how many preschool children can be served in PFA and Head Start? Yeah.
Great, got some numbers coming in.
Good.
I think our participants are very comfortable with that.
I think they are too. I think they are too. Okay, and the answer is 180 can be served. The proposed capacity in PFA is 180. And since there are no Head Start sites funded we're just talking about the town of DeKalb, and the number is 180. How many children of preschool age live in DeKalb? I have to admit, Renee and Agnes, I haven't added them up, so.
Maybe someone can tell us how they're doing it.
Yeah.
We can trust your calculators and your calculations. We see some numbers coming in.
If we consider that preschool children are 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years, we're going to add up 542, 545, and 545.
Great, and the number that we're getting here is 1,632. Is that what others are getting? Yep.
Yep.
Great.
How many preschool children who live in DeKalb live in households with incomes below 50%? If you're looking in the section that you should be looking at, which is the darker kind of sickly brownish, greenish, yellowish color.
That's cute.
I don't know why I chose that. It's really ugly. Anyway, you may note that the numbers look very similar. 9, 9, and 9, 150 3 times, and 10 3 times. Many times in different areas, particularly lower, those with less population in them, we have to estimate some of the numbers, and so we use several formulas, and so sometimes you really do get numbers like 9, 9, and 9.
Great. So I see a few answers coming in. Great. Looks like people are doing some calculations, some math over there.
Okay, and the drum roll, the answer is 450.
Great. Sure.
So I guess our last question then, just kind of looking at the search that we've done, the maps that we looked at, and then this very simple Excel spreadsheet. What kind of conversation will this community have regarding serving children at extreme poverty? And I would love to hear from any of you. If you want to raise your hand, and we will unmute you. What kind of conversations, or if you feel more comfortable, you can write it in the chat box.
This is great, John. So helpful to see the numbers on the page and kind of work through it together.
Yeah, once you really start digging into IECAM, it becomes less overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the important thing is to know what your question is.
Right. Right. So how do you suggest people come to those questions? What have you seen communities do?
You know, I think most of the time the questions follow local conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it really is a cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, here I'm taking you back to conversations after you've looked at the data,
Mm-hmm.
but the data can be best gotten after you've had those local conversations.
That's great advice. Yeah. So as long as you have a conversation first, you just ask those questions, you look at data, you come back together.
Absolutely. Great. Absolutely. Looks like
we have
something. Okay, Don.
Hi, Renee, Don, and Agnes. There are a couple questions in the question box. If you can just take a look.
That'd be great. Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure we're looking at the right things here. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, one question. I can't believe there are no Head Start sites in DeKalb. Is this really correct? Does Head Start really not serve DeKalb? Chances are, and I don't have it with me, of course, chances are there is a Head Start site located elsewhere that serves DeKalb. And again, remember, we're not talking about DeKalb County, we're talking about the town of DeKalb. And so what we do, oh yeah, Donna, this is you asking this. No, I know Head Start serves the county of DeKalb, but the grantee may not have a site located geographically in the town of DeKalb. And that's a very good question for anyone, because you always want to make sure that you check out all of the geographic regions right around the area that you're interested in. Yeah, are the numbers in the ICE Brown section included in the numbers in the green section? Yes. Yes, they are. Okay. There's minimal programs available in this area and barely serves the extreme income population. What additional programs and services will best reach this area? Expansion, PFA, Head Start. Absolutely, Barbara. That is definitely one of the first questions that would be asked.
Here's another good one. What can be done to serve more children? Can only serve not even 50% of 50% below poverty. Great point. Yeah, so those are all things you bring into that community conversation.
And again, let me point out that, you know, I chose these three communities with no agenda in mind. I want to make sure everyone knows that. I really did it geographically only because they show a picture. And I needed something, I wanted something that we could look at numbers and a map. But it is important to always note that, like what Donna had asked about Head Start, and it could go for PFA or a child care center. Just because it may not be in the town of DeKalb, it may be located outside of it, and we're picking it up in another geographic area. So.
Okay, I think we have maybe one more question, and then we're going to move on to our steps 4 and 5.
Great.
Let me just see if I can find it here.
Let's see, only 180 children can be served, yet there are 450 living in extreme poverty. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something, that's a conversation. You know, but again, if these are going, like, the PFA is proposed, they have proposed to serve 180 children in the town of DeKalb. There may be in the county-wide programs more enrollment slots, more capacity. And so that's always something that we want to check on. And again, this is where local conversations come in.
Okay, great. Here's one that came in. Will IECAM allow me to look for data that will help me identify child care deserts, specifically in DuPage County, meaning the amount and location of child care centers by zip code in relationship to the ages of children birth to 5?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
And I think Don can help you.
Yeah. Please contact me. Yeah.
Great questions, and feel free to keep sending those in and contact us after today if you'd like to discuss further. But I'm going to turn it to Agnes, who's going to take us through steps 4 and 5.
Great. Thanks, Dawn, for taking us through that. Remember, we were just going through step 3, accessing the data, and now we're going through step 4, making meaning of that data. So now you want to discuss together and put the data in the context of your own community. How does it feel seeing the data? Was it surprising? Was it shocking? Was it what you expected? What does this data tell us? What's meaningful about this data? And what are the limitations? You also want to consider what additional data is needed and consider both qualitative and quantitative data. Who else needs to be engaged? Who needs to be at the table during these conversations? And how should the data be shared? Is some of this data sensitive? Do you want to make sure that those around the table know what the data is? Okay. And this brings us to step 5, prepare for strategy design. What additional information or data would be needed to design a strategy or a solution? Remember, we want to think qualitative and quantitative. Consider the gaps or the other pieces of different data that you could use to propose a solution to the problem. Remember, we want to use data and the human experience when designing the strategies, not just one or the other. Like Dawn mentioned earlier, we need to consider local history, partners, and previous conversations when we're designing our strategies. So I'd like to pause and take any other questions that you may have. Type them into the chat box or raise your hand and Carla can unmute you. But we'd love to hear any questions regarding our process, navigating IECAM, or some of the outstanding questions about IECAM itself as a database, or learning more about data and how to apply to you and your community. So feel free to type in those questions.
Here's one. If we know that our Head Start in our area has added additional spots this year, can we use what we know, or do we, I have to use what IECAM shows? I would say use what you know, definitely. But please let us know. Please let us know, yeah. First-hand data is always best.
See if there's any other questions.
And if there are any questions that we don't get to, or we have, we will be going through them, and we can send out a follow-up very easily. Okay.
Great. Well, we want to thank you so much. And again, as Dawn said, feel free to send us questions after today. After tonight, you're reviewing the slides and you want to chat about it tomorrow, that'd be great. And we'll follow up too with some frequently asked questions to share with the group, so you have answers to all these as you go forward.
Just a couple of takeaways. The data are just a starting point and need to be supplemented by local knowledge. Communities know the people, the problems, and the practical solutions that are needed. Local conversations between programs, agencies, and community officials are really, really the most important. And then we just wanted to point out several resources. Of course, we have IECAM that we've kind of highlighted. You can also go to the Census Bureau. They have a wonderful site that you can just kind of explore. Chapin Hall also has great data, and then also the Using Data Toolkit and the Partner Plan Act.
And the toolkit that Agnes mentioned earlier, the spreadsheets that you can collect that data and populate in the trichographs, that will be included on Partner Plan Act in about a week.
Yep. And so we just wanted to point out our contact information. If you have any questions, particularly about data, about using IECAM more effectively, or if you just want customized maps or data, or training opportunities, or demonstrations, please contact me, and there's my contact information. And there's Agnes and Renee and their contact information as well.
Wonderful, and I just wanted to make a plug for a really exciting upcoming webinar. It's called World Cafe Conversations, a Powerful Method to Support Community Systems Development. It's going to be Tuesday, September 12th from noon to 1 p.m. And the fabulous Chris Foster is going to be facilitating this. She's a wonderful facilitator, trainer, and very knowledgeable about community systems and the World Cafe approach. For those that have done World Cafe, it's a wonderful method for facilitation, for engaging diverse stakeholders in community conversation. It dovetails so nicely off of this webinar today. So you have that data, how do you have conversations about that data, and perhaps that World Cafe approach can help your group. So go ahead on to Partner Plan Act and register for that webinar today. And we're just going to do a quick poll in closing on a scale of 1 to 5. How valuable was your participation in today's webinar? Not valuable, slightly valuable, moderately valuable, valuable, very valuable. Let us know. And let us know how we can improve, what we could add going forward to make this webinar, this presentation, even more useful to you. Great. And our final data collection for today, we'll go ahead and close that out, close out that poll. Wonderful. We have 2% not valuable, 5% slightly valuable, 21% moderately valuable, 47% valuable, 26% very valuable. Thank you so much for your feedback. Please type into that chat box. Let us know what we could add, change, make more clear as we go forward. We really appreciate and value your feedback. I want to thank you so much for being on the webinar today and for your participation. And we look forward to chatting with you about data in the future. Thanks so much, and feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Have a great day.